Why is it that the visa bulletin is projected to remain current for so long?
A couple of reasons here. One is the processing of petitions. We have a number of petitions that have been filed for post-RIA. They need to be approved. And once they become approved, then you're sent to NVC or they go through the adjustment of status process. And once that person becomes documentarily qualified, then those visa numbers are assigned. And that's when you'll start seeing visas being used in these categories and when we might start seeing final action dates imposed in these categories. But there's a couple of reasons that we're not seeing that occur. One is USCIS is prioritizing the processing of pre-RIA petitions, and they are trying to just avoid visa wastage. There are, what is it, Greg? Like 14,000 plus
Correct.
visas available this year. And in years past, like during COVID, when they were working part-time, consulates were closed, they were not exhausting those visas, and visas were going to waste. And so here there's a concerted effort, and we've seen this in our own projects, our own investors getting approved, to exhaust those visas and prevent visa wastage. The second reason for that is, so they're focused on pre-RIA, getting that backlog knocked out, so fewer visas are being taken by post-RIA investors. Secondly, post-RIA investors that are getting approved, many of these investors are being allocated unreserved visas in the same fiscal year. This is something we discussed repeatedly very early on. I think we were one of the first groups to kind of highlight this, and it's now finally, I think the market is catching up because we're seeing more of these visas being issued. And what I mean by this, and Greg, elaborate where I leave off. When you get your I-526E approved, you're going to see two visa codes on your approval notice. One is for an unreserved visa, one is for a reserved visa. And last month, the State Department publicly stated that you're going to get a notification, you're going to make an election, whether you want to be processed under the reserved visa or the unreserved visa. If you are in the rest of the world, you're born in Canada, you're born in France, even though you chose or you invested in a project that qualifies for the reserved visa, like a high unemployment urban HUA project, you could still choose to be processed under the unreserved visa. And this is great news. We saw this early on, we predicted this, and we've seen it bear out in practice, where in that same fiscal year, the rest of world applicants are getting unreserved visas. And this actually frees up more of the reserved visas in that fiscal year for high demand countries like folks from India, folks from China, and so forth. And that's going to mitigate any potential backlogs going forward. And that's probably why we won't see something in 2020.